Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our big movie podcast. I'm Anson Chan,
I'm Paul Morgan.
and today we're reviewing The Wrestler.
And Logan.
Yes, sir. Do you want to start with The Wrestler today, Paul?
Let's start with the wrestler today. The Wrestler is a Oscar-nominated, maybe even Oscar-winning, I don't really remember, movie directed by Darren Aronofsky from 2008, the first year of Obama's presidency. It stars Mickey Rourke in his triumphant comeback as Randy the Ram,
The
a
Ram.
a wrestler or a former professional wrestler who is now kind of in the amateur circuit. He has some trouble with his family and coping with isolation and stuff like that, and he kind of just chronicles his road to a 20-year reunion where he has to fight someone he fought when he was younger.
In his prime.
And yeah, and all of the trials and tribulations that come along with it. Also, of note in this movie is that world famous comedian Todd Barry plays his boss, and 30 Rock's own Judah Friedlander makes an appearance as Scott Brumberg, a fight promoter. And yeah, Anson, what sat well with you in this movie? What worked?
I think just about everything in this movie worked for me. I was a huge fan. It gets you kind of hooked when you see him like putting the blade or the razor blade in this thing. You're wondering what he's doing that for. And like just during a normal like amateur bout, this is like cutting himself to like get himself to actually bleed. It's like holy crap. You're instantly captivated in this world in which they live, in their just day-to-day occupation, which is to just be completely and totally brutal. Even though it's fake, they still like sustain real injuries and have to like maintain their real life.
Yeah.
The fight with the guy that you said, Judah Freelander, I think he was a wrestler, right? He was
No, he was a fight promoter. He was the guy who set up the whole like autograph signing scene.
Oh, okay. He wasn't the dude with the staple gun.
No. That was someone different. I don't
Okay.
know what actor that was.
Well, I don't recognize any of the other actors in this movie. In fact, I don't think I recognize any of the actors in this movie, which is interesting. But then again, I have a terrible recollection. But I didn't even know who Mickey Rourke was before this, and this is my first, as far as I know, Mickey Rourke movie, and I really liked him in this. Like, it's so good, it's so compelling. Like, you really believe that he's the character.
Yeah.
I love the fight where he does like the staple gun fight.
Oh man.
Because you see it starts with the ending. It does like the whole in medias res thing. It starts with the ending. Then it shows him like
Yep.
in the back getting the staples pulled out. Then it goes like 15 minutes earlier. And they cut to like them just like slapping each other in chairs. It's like, how the fuck did that escalate to diving on barbed wire and like jumping off of ladders and like just getting like their shit kicked in, right? It's like, wow. Serious fucking injuries and brutality. The dude
Yep.
who like staple guns a dollar bill to his head. It's like, dude, what the fuck? Also, I would like to note that I've never seen professional wrestling before. So,
No way. Oh my gosh. It's like some of the most fun
is it
shit
like
to
this?
watch.
Like
It's
the
like
the barbed wire and glass?
yeah, it's like a lot of that. They have these matches called TLC matches, which are my favorite ones to watch, which are called tables, ladders, and chairs matches. So it's pretty much like there's a bunch of ladders on the like kind of arena. There's a bunch of tables on the side, and there's a bunch of chairs, and like there'll be a bunch of people in the ring, like fighting and stuff, and they'll some of them will be climbing ladders and knocking those over onto big stacks of tables. Some of them will be like hitting other guys with it's a chaos, but it's so much fun to watch. And there's like other ones where you're in like a giant cage and you can't go out of it for like certain amounts of time and stuff like that. There's other ones where there's like a belt dangling from like a big rubber thing at the top of the arena, and you have to get like ladders out and try and get the belt, and it's all very performative, like the way they're doing it in this, but
Hmm.
with the added bit of like, yo, the cameras in the actual wrestling matches are very like strategically put out in order to like distract from things like if someone needs to make themselves bleed or something like that.
Hmm.
So it's like it's very fun to watch. It's ridiculous and it's very over the top. And I think at this point it's like obvious to everyone that it's not real at all, but it's just so fun to watch because they're just all these outrageous personalities going really really crazy with their physical talents.
So, on that note, and a side note, I guess, me, Ryan, and Max are gonna go to Japan soon, and we're gonna go see the Japanese wrestling people, whatever those guys are called. The
Sumo wrestlers?
No, no, I wish. Their WWE equivalent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so because they're really excited about that, and like I said, I have no exposure to this outside of now the wrestler, so this is gonna be an interesting time. I might have to
Yeah.
report back and say like, it was so true, the wrestler. I don't know, but anyway, I like the way that the story was told a lot. The camera work initially pissed me off a lot. I hated the shaky
The
cam.
handheld camera.
Fuck, man. It's like maybe it was just like the quality of the copy that I had. The frames like weren't very fast, so you really see every jiggle like way too much because it's just not like the frames aren't like loading fast enough for the movie.
Yeah.
So that was really distracting, but only for like the first half, and then you get used to it, or else maybe they just got better at it. I'm not sure. I really like the scene where he's like starting his new job as like the deli counter guy, and like I totally knew what was gonna happen because like the first time you get a new job, it's like sunshine and sparkles. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this isn't so bad,
Yep.
or like, oh, I'm really excited to do this. And then so his first day is fucking amazing because he's just dicking around having a great time. And then like just the real job just kind of sets in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that scene where he's walking out to the deli counter behind, and they're following him through the tunnels, and it looks like they're going to like an arena, right? Like the backstage of an arena, and they have
Yeah.
the crowds cheering, and it's getting louder and louder and louder as he's getting toward like the plastic little drapes, and when he opens it, there's just no cheering. Oh, so good! Like this movie was spot on with the sound and the
Yeah. Sound design in this movie was amazing.
yeah, the sound and the visuals, I guess. Yeah, like the wrestling looked really fantastic, and it was funny with their last scene too. I really liked because it didn't have the big sounds of the previous matches of the big like hitting the floor and that big rattle that the wood makes. You know when they hit the stage.
Yep.
It was just like when they're hitting each other, you just hear like the weak slaps of like like flesh on flesh. You know what I mean? Instead of like big boom, oh, just little bits of you know.
Yeah.
It was so interesting. It made it feel so much more impotent, right? Or is that the right word? Like
Impotent.
impotent. Thank you. This felt so much more impotent. Like them just trying to like hit each other or look big when they're just like clearly all very old and can't really perform.
Yeah.
Oh man, the ending, the climax was fantastic. Everything building to the end was amazing, and you really, really, really felt sympathetic for the guy. This did a really good job of exploring the character, and I think this might be the best movie I've seen this year, if I can be honest. It's only fucking March, spoiler, but this I really hold in high regard.
Yeah. I
Paul, what did you like about the movie?
I think some of the things I liked were like you. I don't just in general. I tend not to like shaky cam just because
Hmm.
I think in the last few years, especially like I'll say the last 5 years, so like 2012 on, maybe since the Bourne Supremacy, the shaky cam use in movies has been a little bit over the top, and a lot of people use it to like distract from either bad acting or bad fight choreography or bad this or bad that.
Hmm.
I think, not to sound pretentious or anything, but I think Darren Aronofsky is one of those directors who is like dedicated enough to the craft of movie making that he knows when shaky cam is going to be effective and how to use it very effectively. And I think this one really kind of hit me in the right way once I got used to it. Because when I started watching it, I kind of had that knee-jerk reaction you did, which is like, oh God, not a bunch of this again. And then I kind of grew into it, and I really liked it. Like especially when he's walking through the backstages of like his matches and stuff like that, and then when that's juxtaposed with him walking in the like stock room of the grocery store when he's going in to talk to his boss Todd Barry,
Hmm.
um, and I really liked that a lot, and I liked the camera work in general, just because I thought it was kind of artful how they would. I mean, I don't remember if they did this in every match, but they would kind of cut from these very close, shaky cam shots of like all of the stuff that they're doing, like these handheld shots of like either him grabbing the razor and cutting himself, or him, and the staple gun guy, and then they would cut out to these really wide shots that kind of show, oh, there's like a thin layer of people around the ring. It's not like a big, arena. And that was a completely static shot when they did that, the
Hmm.
time that I'm thinking of.
Hmm.
And it was just so good. He's such a good director, I think, and he just has a good handle on visual language and stuff like that. So there was the camera work. I thought the acting was really fantastic. Like you, I'm not very familiar with Mickey Rourke at all. But Judah Friedlander is one of my favorite actors, and he's kind of known for being the same character in just about, well, a lot of the things he's been in. Like in 30 Rock, he was pretty much playing his stand up persona. But then he was in this movie called American Splendor that just like blew me away with how different he was from his normal self. And in this movie, he was really different from his normal self. Not that he was outlandishly different, but just like he did, I thought he did a good job, and I really liked his character. He seemed just like someone who was very enthused about wrestling, and I think he played it well. I like Todd Barry's acting. Todd Barry's one of my favorite comedians, and he doesn't get a lot of acting roles because I don't know that he's right for a lot of stuff that's not, directly himself, but I really liked him in it. Especially the scene where Mickey Rourke walks in on him watching porn and he
Yeah.
goes, let's try that again. No, really, go outside and come back in
Yeah. Yeah.
while
Yeah.
he's knocking. I thought that was really funny for some reason. I love Marissa Tomei, dude. She did such a great job. She's an awesome actor. I believe she might have been nominated for an Oscar for this movie.
I think she got
Uh,
best, or she was nominated for best supporting actress.
Okay, yeah, I think she got nominated for that, and Mickey Rourke got nominated for Best Actor. Um,
He got nominated for best actor.
yeah, and so like I just thought the acting was really solid, um, and the music was cool. I thought like we said, the sound design was really great, but like the juxtaposition of like this really kind of like hard rocking AC/DC song with him like
Hmm.
really really struggling to do like a single bicep curl in the gym was just really great. Um, and then I'm gonna leave it after this next thing because I don't want to expand too much. But one of the things I really liked was so when he was after his spoiler alert after his heart attack, when he's sitting in his trailer and he like draws all the blinds closed and just like sits by himself. Something about that scene really connected with me, especially when he called the kid in to come play video games with him. Because I know
Hmm.
it's a very different context, but like I have a chronic medical condition, and I'm a lot of times I'm on medicine where I'm not allowed to drive on this medicine. I don't feel comfortable outside or in public with this medicine because it makes my ears really sensitive to loud noises. It makes
Hmm.
me irritable. And I really related to the sense of like isolation that can come from, you know, having a medical condition that other people don't really understand. Just because, like, you can tell he wants to be out there, you can tell he wants to be putting himself out there and being with the people he loves,
Hmm.
but the fact remains he can't do that. And it was just, it felt poignant to me because I think I relate to that really well because it's like when I have my medical issue going on, which is, it's on always going on, but when it's really bad, I'm stuck inside with not a lot to do, and I can't be myself or be around the people I like, and it sucks. And I really felt that for him for some reason. I don't know why.
On the
But
topic of where you related to, one of the things I forgot to mention was their portrayal of like that fading fame or like that aged glory
yeah,
is very, very poignant in this too, where it's like
yeah. Oh,
when
and by the way, for any of our listeners, I just want to say, because people always get this wrong, especially on the internet, poignant means evoking a keen sense of sadness or regret. So if any of you come to us saying you're using pretentious words or anything, poignant means what it means, and we know what we're saying.
wow, I'm really glad I used it in the right context this time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because the other day I used it in a conversation on Facebook about the movie we're about to talk about, Logan, and someone was like, "That movie wasn't poignant," and I was like, "Fucking Google the definition of poignant, motherfucker." So, anyways, I'm passionate about that word. People use it wrong all the time.
Passion of the Paul, you got to see it. Well,
Anyways,
so
you're saying it was also poignant, the sense of fading fame.
the fading fame, the aged glory, were they juxtapose a lot of scenes where like you said, the hard rock, the AC/DC, or just like the really that like old '80s metal sound that was like so tough with like him just being old and not in his prime, which like just makes it so much more,
like you said.
yeah, being more tragic and ironic when you just see him with that hardcore sound. And even then, you kind of like we're aware of like that image that like rock and roll has now of like it's your dad's or grandparents' music. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
old people going to see really old people on stage.
Yeah.
80-year-old
Like Mick Jagger's
people on
like
stage.
what, like 75?
Yeah, and
Jagger's
it's just
like
like
an
what
old
the
man.
hell? Yeah, like these old melting people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was interesting seeing that now. I guess is like an adult millennial, like
Yeah.
because you can really get a sense of that. And again with the scene where you say like with the isolation, where he's asking the kids, "Hey, come on and play Nintendo," and he's still playing like the old Super Nintendo. For a second, I said, "What era is this in?" When I saw the Super Nintendo, because there's nothing in the movie that really alludes to like what time period they're in, except for like the beginning was like 1998 or something like that.
And when the
Right?
kid talks about Call of Duty 4.
As soon as this is Call of Duty 4, you're like, wow, they did not
Yeah.
let on because no one's using a cell phone. Like none of these people like have like, or you don't see Mickey Rourke like with any basic amenities, right?
Yeah.
The deli could be from any time
Yep.
that he works in. The car that he drives could have been like really old too. But when you realize this is like in modern times, Call of Duty 4 came out, it's like, oh shit. All of the stuff that we're seeing are just like very relics of the past kind of thing. Things that did freeze in time. When he's working at the deli serving all the old people. That's also a very interesting scene too, because it's just like, this is what happens when you get old kind of thing. And he's been teetering on the brink this whole time of like trying to relive his glory days while at the same time having a real life that is not him trying so hard to recapture that. But he can't because he just doesn't
Yeah.
exist in this world anymore. And it's really sad because he's telling his daughter about the he's kind of isolated himself and he knows that he deserves it because he was a dumbass at the time. But like
Yep.
that is so relatable and it's so sad that is even like a reality. But you don't see the bad parts of Mickey Rourke's character. Like if he was bad, you would never see it. It's kind of like wasn't there a movie about like there's a lot of movies like this where you get like Sympathy for the Devil because they never show the bad parts.
Yeah.
Even the outlaw Jesse James, you never see him being bad, right? You just see everyone kind of kowtowing to him. In this,
Yeah,
he
you
does,
see like the one robbery in the beginning, but you never see him
That's it.
like coldly murder anyone or anything like that.
Yeah,
Until
you
he
never see any
starts
brutality.
fearing his power is slipping.
yeah. And so in this, Mickey Rourke, his character Randy the Ram, says, I deserve this. I'm terrible. I just don't want you to hate me.
Yeah.
And it's so sad because he's this whole time like he's been on the brink after the heart attack. He's just like that much closer, just like slipping over the edge. And then when like all those series of events unfold, which kind of lead him to fuck it. I'm just gonna. If this is the only place I belong and it's gonna kill me doing it, I'm gonna die doing it. You live by the sword, I die by the sword, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's just, oh man, you really do feel sympathetic for the guy. You at the same time, when you look at the way his life is going, you're like, I would do the exact same thing. I would rather die in one literally like the last hurrah you're ever gonna have, probably the 20-year anniversary thing, the big event. Fuck yeah, I'd rather die doing that than to keep living in this shit life, you know. Marissa Tomei's like thing at the very end, she's like, but I'm here, and it's like so I'm gonna spoil the ending of the movie a little bit. Before he goes out, he knows that like he has this medical condition. His heart could give out because he had a heart attack. He's looking at himself in the mirror, which is clever because he's actually not. Like the way that the camera's angled, it looks like he's looking in the mirror, but the camera sees the scar, right? Yeah. And then he's like feeling it, he's hitting it, he's like getting dressed, and you just see the scar in the mirror at all times, right? You just know this is like bad news. And when she comes out, she's like, "I'm here, you know. I came. What the fuck are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I belong out there. I'd rather be here than out there, because out there no one gives a shit about me." But even in there, it's very fleeting. You know what I mean? But he would still cling to what is all completely staged and the reality that is very, very sad and beating him down constantly. And I thought that was so beautiful. And when he goes out, and she's watching him, right? But she turns away because she can't see him do it. And he looks back to see if she's still there, because maybe he won't kill himself doing it and she's not there. He's just like, oh, fuck it. Go for the dive, you know? Like, yeah. I was so with it. That ending was fantastic. The last 15 minutes, I was like holding my mouth like the whole time watching that match unfold. Yeah. Funnily, I have like the mirror on my like closet door, kind of like facing me. This is on accident. It wasn't intentional. So like when I was done with the movie, I was just frozen. But I looked up and I saw myself in the mirror just like this, and I was like, oh, I must have been like this for 20 minutes. Because like, it was just so powerful. It's so moving, and just like, you feel every second and like every hit, and it's just so emotional, so good. I love it. Yeah.
No, that movie was pretty fantastic. Was there anything that didn't work for you in this movie?
Again, I'll say the shaky cam. Everything was kind of like bluish, darkish filtered, and I get it's wintertime. Yeah. I don't think that didn't work for me, but I knew what they were going for right away. We just saw Logan too, so it was like they both had the same kind of like, we're going for this color scheme, right? Yeah, if it's not in the desert, it's very blue.
High contrast, not very saturated color all the time.
Yeah, it's either very brown and yellow or very blue and dark. Yeah. But in this one, it's very blue and dark, or they're in the ring when it looks like very fluorescent or like kind of weird. The only thing I really had to complain about was the camera work, and maybe a little bit the daughter's. I think she did a decent job, though. I can't say this is something that didn't work for me. I think her speeches were a little long-winded, but
yeah, I think they kind of they maybe could have developed her a little bit more past the just being constantly angry at him type thing. But at the same time, I understand why she was the way she was.
Exactly, same.
It's like, she's the only window into the shittiness of his personality, because we only see him being ambitious and nostalgic.
Yeah, and just like living in the past kind of thing. Yeah. So, while that was like a little bit like on the nose for me, I don't hold it against the movie, because I know that it needed it and what it was trying to go for. Yeah. And it didn't really detract from it.
Definitely.
I guess that's it. I can't really think of anything else that didn't work for me in this movie, honestly.
Sure.
What about you? Was there anything that didn't work for you?
Every time I try and think of something that doesn't work, I think about it a little bit more, and it ends up working okay for me.
Can you give me some examples of that?
So, like, one of the things I was going to say doesn't work is, like, and I feel really bad for saying this because I feel like I should appreciate this more, but, like, I don't enjoy, like, 90% of AC/DC's music. I don't think it's aggressive. I don't think it's hard rocking. I don't think it's very special. I understand that it was innovative at the time, but, like, when they started playing that in, like, the opening part and it's like it's full toned. You hear everything. It's not like you're hearing it through his headphones or anything. I was like, oh God, like they're trying to use this to like rile us up. And then when you talked about it, you were like, oh, well, those rock stars that's like old man music now. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh shit, like that totally works. Like that works so well. Like that's such a good way of seeing this music,
Hmm.
I guess. And so like there was that, and then there was like the shaky cam, which I was like, oh shit, which I was like, oh, shaky cam is kind of annoying sometimes, but they used it to great effect. Like handheld can be really effective if you use it the right way. So it's like every time I think of something I don't like, I kind of come back to reasons why it ended up working for me in this movie.
See, you had the DVD copy, so
Yeah,
maybe for you it was a little bit smoother than mine. Because, like I said, because of the way that like it was loading or like the frames like per second, it
sure.
was really jarring. Like it was like Transformer levels of bad, where it was like
Oh gosh. Okay, yeah, it
like,
was
and
not
then
like that
and
for me.
yeah, and I could tell like the camera's not moving that much, but it's like every step that he's taking, you're getting a sense of every step that the guy's taking, the camera guy, and
Yeah.
like when I compare it to something like Birdman, where it was like it all felt very smooth, like on rails, like while I was moving through the
Yeah,
corridors
Birdman
with
was
him,
pretty much all steady cam the entire time, I
and it was
think.
floating, right? Or
Yeah.
if it wasn't, you couldn't even tell
Yeah.
because it was following him through like corridors, into doors, and like in all these impossible to go places with the
Yep.
rail. But it wouldn't feel right in this movie because it needs that grittiness because of kind
Yep.
of like what they're doing in just their profession in day to day life. It can't be so smooth. It needs to have that jarring, uneasy feeling, right? It needs to have
Yeah,
that
exactly.
unrefined kind of feel. But just in my copy, maybe it was just pretty nauseating in the first half.
Sure, that makes perfect sense to me. I totally understand.
What
Um,
else? What else was kind of messed up?
I don't really have that much that didn't work for me besides those two things that I like came around on. So I guess what I will say is that I do have something I wanted to add to what worked for me.
Sure.
And I guess it comes with a little bit of explanation. So I'm fascinated by bodybuilding and steroid culture. I would never do steroids, and I'm not a bodybuilder, and I will never be. But I'm fascinated by those things. And like one of my favorite short stories is just literally about the author of the story taking or like getting an excuse to get prescribed steroids by his doctor and then doing them and working out a ton and like how steroids affect your body and your mindset and all that stuff. And some of my favorite people, some of the people I idolize are like bodybuilders and stuff. So like, I don't know, I like how wrestling seems to marry the worlds of stunts, bodybuilding, steroid culture, and then like the brotherhood of like a sports team. Like one of my favorite scenes in this movie is when it's like I think it's before the first match of his that they show, the one where he uses the razor, and it's
Hmm.
literally like a room full of dudes talking about what shit they're gonna do to each other because we know this is all planned. Like we know from WWE that like there are writers and they write scripts and they choose who's going to be the villain each season and they choose who's going to win and who's going to lose. And like this is like people doing that on a small scale and then he goes out to like buy his steroids and he's like admiring of his friend's body. He's like, "Oh man, you're looking great, dude." And the guy's, "No, no, no, no. Yeah, I have so much more work to do or whatever." I
And
just
this guy's
love
already
that.
like a tank. He's like
Yeah, he's
fucking
like
jacked.
massive. Like his lats are like twice the width of his like belly area, and you're just like, oh my god, this guy's huge, and he hates himself. I don't know. I loved that stuff. Like I really really love that stuff a lot.
Yeah, you
So
are a glutton for that, though.
I really am. I think I don't know what it is. I think my childhood obsession with Brad Pitt's Fight Club body probably started me off on that.
Was he
And
even
then
that buff in Fight Club?
he wasn't even buff. He was just 6% body fat, which is like,
Yeah.
Or I mean, that's what all the forums say is that, he's 6% body fat, barely bulked up his shoulders and his lats and then just cut fat a ton. And like after I saw that, I saw Pumping Iron, and Pumping Iron's one of my favorite movies because, that was back when bodybuilders looked like normal people, or at least somewhat like normal people. I don't know. I just love those worlds, and I think they did a great job of combining them, I guess. That was kind of a long-winded anecdote that had very little to do with the movie, but
No, that adds a lot to why you appreciate the movie more.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Before we move on to anything else, I wanted to kind of compare this movie to Birdman if you haven't seen it, or if
Oh,
you in the
I've seen
audience,
Birdman.
yeah, you in Radioland haven't seen it. This movie's a lot like Birdman in both the story it's trying to tell and the way it was shot. I feel like Birdman might have ripped this off, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this ripped off something else. But almost like per beat, Birdman was this movie, except with, spoiler, a happy ending, right? Or a ambiguously happy ending, right? So
I wish Birdman would have had this sad ending.
okay. They I remember them talking about this for Birdman, which was like they played around with a bunch of different kinds of endings, like an overly happy one, an overly sad one, and like it just fucked with the whole tone of the rest of the movie because you walk away with what you got at the end, right? And it kind of like tints the rest of the movie that you saw before in that light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so by giving it that ambiguous end or something like that, I think I remember this. I'm not making this up. If I am, I'm a horrible person, but I don't think I am, right? They wanted to settle with that weird ambiguous ending because like it was still happy, but like it's still very much interpretive to your imagination, right?
Yeah.
This one even goes so far as it's interpretive to your imagination as to what happens at the end of this one, because it doesn't really show whether or not Randy the Ram dies, but it shows he has nothing left afterwards anyway, right? We think he dies because it looks like he's fucking having palpitations all the way through the match, right? And if this is his way to die, it's very sad, and if he lives, it's even more tragic, right? It's like, what do you like better, Birdman or The Wrestler?
I mean, it's tough because I like them both so much. I think Birdman was one of my favorite movies in the year
it came out. Same.
And then this movie came out, and I didn't see it till this year. So, to me, it's tough because I have this strong emotional attachment to Birdman, even though I acknowledge it has I think the ending is a little bit flawed, in my opinion. I would have liked it to have been darker. But Birdman, I think they're both about the, not to use kind of a broken metaphor, but it's like both of these movies are about Damocles after he's forced off the throne and then trying to get back on the throne. Like in the anecdote of Damocles, he never gets back on the throne after he gets off. He hangs the sword above his head that represents the danger inherent in having power, and then he gets off the throne, and he never gets back on. These movies are about guys who are trying to get back on the throne, guys who were at the top of their game. Like Mickey Rourke performed at Madison Square Garden. What's the guy who plays Birdman? He, was in his world, one of the biggest selling movies. And they're both losing favor fast. And they need to get back on the throne to prove to themselves something.
Mm-hmm.
I think the story is a good one regardless, because I think exploring the motivation behind why you need to get back on that throne is interesting, because I think they're very parallel. Like you said, I think they're very similar because like in The Wrestler, it seems to suggest at the end that like the only place Mickey Rourke can find acceptance is the ring, and he gets back into the ring at the very end. And in Birdman, it's about acceptance by himself, but it's also about validation. Like,
Hmm.
one thing that The Wrestler doesn't have in it that Birdman has a lot of is appearances by critics. Like, in Birdman, there's that one critic that doesn't like Edward Norton, and Edward
Yeah.
Norton, finds her at the bar, and they have this weird exchange. And then there's these other people who are saying, like, yo, the
Was it
guy who
Edward
played
Norton?
Birdman. What's
Or
that?
was it the Birdman's character went to the bar and talked to the
Oh, sorry,
reporter?
yeah, he goes to the bar. Edward Norton's character is liked by this critic. But, like, in Birdman, there's these critics that they all have to deal with. Like, Michael Keaton's daughter is a critic of his, but she's still in his life. That one lady is a critic, and she doesn't like him at all. She thinks he's a hack. So, like, one of them's about finding validation within yourself, and the other one is about the duality of validating yourself while also seeking, like, massive amounts of external validation.
Hmm.
And I like both of those stories a lot because it's like, I guess to me it's like, how do you become comfortable with your wants, or where you feel the most alive, or where you feel the most human, where you feel the most connected? And both of the movies provide different answers because I
Yeah.
think when Michael Keaton's character realizes that his attempt at reconnecting with the world is a disaster, he tries to kill himself. And Mickey Rourke is different, to me at least, because he says, this one thing I love is going to kill me, but it's the only thing that loves me back.
Yeah.
I have to let it kill me.
Yeah.
Whereas Michael Keaton's like, I have no other way out. I'm ruined. I can't get back on the throne. I'm going to kill myself. And that's
Yeah.
tragic and important and interesting.
Hmm.
The other one is like, I love this thing so much, I'm going to let it kill me.
Even like the shot choice, if we go back to the way the camera is, if you think about the way Birdman was, it feels like a Wes Anderson movie. In both like the way that they try to like have weird stuff pop up, or like it's kind of fantastic.
And it's very
The
ultra controlled.
Yes, and then this one feels, or the rest one feels more like a documentary in the way that like it follows someone over the shoulder, and they kind of like, well, they don't exactly talk to him. He's being interviewed by his friends, or interviewing his
Yeah.
friends. So it's like in the moment kind of stuff, where you see the day in the life of Randy the Ram.
Yeah.
Right. And so those two different approaches lend themselves so well for how the message they want, right? I guess.
Yep.
Or this other world they want to kind of inhabit. So, I think if I would have saw The Wrestler first, I might have liked it more than Birdman. But now that I saw Birdman first, I'm very conflicted.
Yeah, I feel very conflicted as well. So, Anson, would you recommend this movie to other people?
Yes, I would. Also, if you haven't seen Birdman, I'd recommend watch The Wrestler. Just in general, watch The Wrestler. It's a really, really good movie. And if you liked it, give Birdman a watch, because I want to hear from someone who hasn't seen Birdman first, if whoever's listening that exists, to see what their take on it is afterwards. Because I want to see the side by side from someone who hasn't had that kind of experience. I don't know.
I agree.
And tonally, this movie is very similar to our next movie we're going to review, Logan, which just came out, which is also about someone at the end of their ropes and is kind of beaten down by life.
Yep.
You mind if I take this one away?
Go for it. By the way, I'd recommend The Wrestler too. It's one of my very few recommendations that comes without qualification. I'd just straight up recommend it.
Cool. Sorry, I
Sorry.
cut you off.
No,
My bad.
no worries.
So, to Logan, the 2017 movie starring Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart, is about Logan, or Wolverine, the character from X-Men, in the not too distant future of 2027 or something like that. Like 2020s. Or is it? Something like that. 2040?
2029 according to Wikipedia, but
Okay.
we're
In
pretty close.
2029, in a post-Trump world where a wall border to Mexico exists, we follow Hugh Jackman as he finds like a new mutant. Apparently no more new mutants are being born because they have, as we reveal later, spoilers, the mutant gene has kind of been like cured, if you will, as they say in the movie, like a polio vaccine has kind
Yeah.
of been made for the mutants,
We
right?
should just mention before we keep going that we're going to spoil this whole movie. So if you haven't seen it and don't want to know exactly what happens, stop listening here.
Yeah, I mean, there's
I
really
mean,
not
I'm
too
going to
much to
spoil it.
spoil. There's not too much to spoil, like,
Yeah.
because I was thinking about it. There's like, how long is this movie? Is it a 2 hour runtime?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 hour 20 runtime. I'd say there'd be like actually an hour's worth of plot, and then the rest is just gratuitous action.
Sure.
So there's no more mutants. All the X-Men are, for whatever reason, dead. All the other mutants are, for whatever reason, gone. I'm not quite sure, but
Well, I mean, they explain it with those lines of dialogue. They said that corporation down in Mexico was trying to cure the mutant gene not because they wanted to eradicate mutants, but because they wanted to control it. And I mean, they cover this in the other X-Men movies. Like, I believe in the first one, they're trying to find a cure for the mutant gene that one senator is that gets killed. And
right.
then there's that plot line of Rogue really wanting to be healed, quote unquote, or cured.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's something that's come up before, and I guess this is kind of the end result of it.
I suppose there's a lot of questions for me. Like afterwards, I had a lot of like, wait, what? And wait, when? And wait, who? Moments,
Sure.
because when I was decompressing, I saw this movie with Tyler yesterday. But anyway, so we follow them in this like post mutant cure world, and Wolverine's getting sick. He's dying, and his powers aren't really working anymore. And Charles Xavier, played by Patrick Stewart, is very old now and has like a neurodegenerative disease, like some sort of Alzheimer's or something, and he's prone to like seizures and losing control of his powers. So we're seeing the effects of old age on the remaining X-Men. We follow them on their journey to take this lab-created mutant who is quote-unquote child of Hugh Jackman, made from his genes, to Eden, a place that they think is a haven for mutants.
Yeah.
And that's about it. Honestly, that's like the whole plot.
Yep.
Without like spoiling the ending, but we're gonna spoil the ending anyway as we get into it.
Yeah.
Paul, what did you like about Logan?
I really enjoyed the brutality of it. I think one of the things about Wolverine or Logan or whatever that often goes under overlooked, I guess, is that according to the movies, and I've never really read a bunch of X-Men comics, the claws he has are made of a metal that literally cannot be broken by anything.
Mm-hmm.
So why was the immediate reaction by the studio heads not to be like, oh, we should have him stabbing through people's fucking skulls? The fact that this movie did that, I thought was great. And I loved it every time it happened. I loved how slowly the girl came around to Logan. I didn't like it when I first saw it happening, but then the more I thought about it, I liked that it took pretty much the entire first like hour and a half for them to even talk to each other. Spoiler alert, she does end up talking at one point in the movie.
Spoiler alert, she also doesn't talk.
Yeah. I really thought that the emotional voice of Wolverine was I thought it was really good in this movie. Like, I've seen all the X-Men movies. I do not like all of the X-Men movies.
Same.
I wouldn't even go as far as to say a lot of the X-Men movies are pretty badly done. Not to shit on anything, but I'm not a big fan of the X-Men movies. This one, I felt like they took all of the parts of Wolverine that I think matter and mashed it into an emotional experience that I think is impactful. Logan knows that every time he gets involved with someone, they get hurt because people come for him and end up inevitably hurting the people he loves. It happened in the first Wolverine movie when he was with his family. It happened in the X-Men movies with the X-Men. It
Hmm.
happened all the time pretty much in this series. And he's sick of it. He knows if I take on some sort of responsibility that involves helping someone, that person is going to get hurt. And it
Hmm.
happens in this movie. And he knows that it's going to keep happening. And he's like, he's sick of it, justifiably. And I liked the way they portrayed that. He was like, everything he did, it seemed like he was just tired all the time,
Hmm.
and he was sick of life, and he was not having any of anybody's bullshit. He was trying to be a realist, he was trying to be a cynic, and yet what little good in him there is kind of still shone through. Like, he still does want to help even though he knows it could turn out disastrously for people.
Hmm.
I really liked the little girl. I thought she did a great job. I mean, I thought Patrick Stewart did great. I thought the what's the co-creator of The Office's name? Um, fucking Stephen Merchant did a good job as Caliban, and yeah, I think I liked a lot of things about this movie.
Oh, he's the
Um,
co-creator of The Office.
the original Office, yeah. I don't know if he
Oh,
had
hell
anything
yeah.
to do with the American Office, but he's a comedy writer in England.
Oh, interesting.
Um, Yeah, all in all, I thought the plot was fine. I mean, I think I went to go see an R-rated superhero movie so that I could see brutal violence, and I thought the brutal violence was impactful as opposed to being like super gratuitous all of the time. And I really liked the end. I liked that they let a character die. Like the character that probably kept people coming back to the X-Men movies for. They
Hmm.
let him die. I liked that. I thought it was great.
Hmm.
So those are the things I liked. I know those seem like just a few quick things that I unnecessarily expanded on, but I think those are the things that hit me the biggest. What did you like about this movie?
I really like the opening scene where this is what would really happen if someone tried to fuck with Wolverine.
Yeah,
Um, the gang's just like trying to steal his hubcap, so he's on the car's like, guys, don't do that, please, come on. And
yeah,
then like they shoot him with a fucking shotgun, and like, okay, he's dead. And they keep going, and it's just like, guys, you really don't want to do this. And then they're like, oh fuck, he's un diablo,
yeah.
a
That was
fucking
a
demon,
great
the devil.
scene.
And he's just like, oh fuck it, and just starts like straight up murdering dudes, claws to the skull,
Yeah,
blood everywhere, chopping off arms. That was very refreshing. In a
yeah,
like, it's shocking. You go, ah, you like Wolverine is like straight up murdering dudes. As we know, he always had the possibility to. We've just
yeah,
never seen it. It was like Watchmen level gore, right? Of just like,
yeah,
I'm the comedian. I'm gonna blow out John F. Kennedy's brains, or I am
yeah,
Doctor Manhattan. I will totally just explode a dude's body into like
yeah,
goo, into just bloody pulpy goo. Like, it was nice to see that. I really liked. I loved Patrick Stewart's performance in this
oh
as the
yeah,
doddering old aging Charles Xavier, because he just brought it every time he had something to say that was like related to like, remember the dream, or you should be ashamed of yourself. We took you in, or like, I'm, like, don't treat me like I'm some senile. Da 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 da. Like, it
yeah,
felt very, very, very real. It didn't feel cartoony, comic-y, ham-fisty. Knowing his background in the other X-Men movies, just like the lore that surrounds him, it was such an interesting place to see him in this time of life, just near death or just like succumbing to what we can imagine is like some sort of like Alzheimer's disease, right?
yeah,
Beautiful. And the relationship he and Hugh Jackman have is like kind of like a weird father son thing. Hugh Jackman just kind of wants to protect Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart has, other ideas to protect new Logan, aka Laura, in this movie, right? Beautiful. I love their interplay the whole time.
yeah,
I liked the action, especially seeing the little girl just straight up murdering dudes. I don't know who the fucking stunt double was, or who that little kid was that was like actually doing those stunts, right? Because it wasn't a midget and it wasn't CGI, but some little girl was actually like jumping on people, like doing weird Krav Maga moves, or like Brazilian like jiu-jitsu on people, and like kicking them
Yeah.
in the back with like spiny boots. Like the boots obviously were CGI, but like that was like, whoa, how are they doing this? Right? That
Yeah.
was really cool to see. Because it's easy to imagine like how, a Hugh Jackman sized person would beat up dudes with guns in stunts. But a little
Yeah.
girl, I've never seen that. Also a little girl straight up murdering platoons of dudes in the most brutal way was really cool to see. This movie was peppered with a lot of just like good moments of comedy, a lot of well, in my opinion, maybe too much gratuitous violence. Like
Sure.
there are moments where it's like refreshing and shocking. You go, oh my god, I just saw that. But then there's just like a whole bunch of just padding of just okay, now we're
Yeah,
just
there
seeing
are a
more
few moments where
murders.
they really they seem to build up to the violent kind of explosion very well, and it's like very satisfying. And then there's a few other times where it's like, oh man, just like unneeded here.
Yeah, a couple of those scenes I guess would just be like the corn farm went on a little too long. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, I like that they put these characters to bed. Hugh
Yeah,
Jackman's dead. Patrick Stewart's dead. They leave room for a new X-Men generation, but I'll talk about that later in my critiques. But for the most part, I like this pacing in the movie while I was watching it. But afterwards, I was like, okay, they're just padding this out with a lot of action. There wasn't a lot happening really.
sure. There's a few sequences I think they could have cut altogether, action wise.
Yeah, but I appreciate the fact that it tried to take its time, even though that time that they took was just more. I'm just gonna kill dudes in the meantime,
Yeah,
right? I liked seeing grizzled, disaffected Logan who just like doesn't care anymore. That was really interesting. It was like the reverse of like, superhero movies where they always have that whole here's your new superhero and here's his origin story and here's how he's going to come into the fold versus here I am already in the fold. This is what happens when you're just like a grizzled killer and this is
yeah,
me getting out of the fold. That was like a nice twist on the origin story because we don't really have any of those really. The
yeah.
put this
And I also
character to
think,
death story.
and in the spirit of that, I think it's worth noting that like the very first X-Men movie has one of the coolest character introductions of all time, which is Logan's character introduction. I don't know if you remember this, but it's when they're going to that bar in Canada and he's cage fighting guys. And like the first thing that happens is the guy tries to punch at him. He catches his hand and then he punches with the other hand and he punches Logan's fist
Hmm.
and it just breaks his hand. And like this was before there were a lot of superhero movies besides Superman and Batman. Like X-Men was one of the first movies to like not be a mainstream superhero in live action. Yeah, I think X-Men came
That's
out in
true.
like 2000, 2001.
It was around the time of the first Spider-Man
Yeah,
with Tobey
2000.
Maguire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like this movie came out before like the huge superhero craze and a couple years before Spider-Man, which was 2002. And like Logan's character introduction was like what I mean, I think that could have possibly made Hugh Jackman's career what it is today.
One could argue that. I would actually agree.
And like I think this is one of the coolest cappers to like a superhero career. Kind of
Mm.
like how we were just talking about Birdman, like I'm pretty sure financially because of all these movies, Hugh Jackman can do whatever the fuck he wants for the rest of his life.
Yeah, he's probably set. He's been in so many films just off of X-Men alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he's not an idiot with his money, then
Yeah.
he'll have a very nice life. I think that's about it. Cause the very last scene I liked when Lori, little Logan, is like over the burial mound of Hugh Jackman and there's like a cross and she tilts it to be an
Yeah.
X and that's how they close the movie. I was like,
That was
oh,
tight.
very good. That was nice.
Yeah.
Cause like that was really clever.
Yep.
And that was nice to see. Those are the things I really liked about the movie.
Yeah.
Paul, what didn't you like or what didn't work for you in this movie?
Okay. For how cool Logan and Laura were, and for how well Patrick Stewart did as an actor, and for how well Stephen Merchant did as an actor, I thought the main bad guys were kind of boring.
I agree.
The guy with the robot hand was boring. because
Agreed.
all he is a glorified like special forces agent.
Yeah, his only personality trait was he was a snarky Southern guy.
Yeah, it's like that's kind of boring.
Uh
Um,
huh.
I thought and this is one of those criticisms where I don't have a suggestion for how this could be improved, so I apologize for that ahead of time. But I thought the way they did Patrick Stewart's like little mental freakouts, like his seizure thingies, I thought that was a little bit generic of a film technique. Like, does that make sense? Like,
And just like the way that like the effects were, like the shaky,
yeah,
shaky,
it was
shaky,
like the
shaky.
cameras all of a sudden are kind of like slightly wobbling, and then everything is slightly wobbling, and it's kind of hard to move. Like, I feel like that could have there's so much opportunity to be really inventive and take risks there. And I feel like they already were taking a risk by making a, beloved superhero movie like brutally violent. Why not take other risks by like doing something more interesting or more cinematic with the Patrick Stewart seizures?
I'm not
Um,
sure. I'm not a comic book guy. How his powers would like, or how his powers played out in the comics or even the other movies. I can't even remember too well. But for what it's worth, I thought that was like effective visually for what it did. And there's that one cool scene in the casino where that was like,
yeah, it was very effective. You're right. I just wish it would have been more interesting. Because for how long those went on, I was like, could have been a little more interesting. But I agree it was effective. It just I wanted something more special or risk taking, I guess.
mhm.
Um, I had trouble with appreciating some of the fighting stuff. In particular, I didn't need the scene where they speed away in the limo and then get across the train tracks. And I think that speaks to me like a need for everything in superhero movies to be a little bit more perilous than it needs to be, I guess, if that makes sense. I think they could have had that first getaway be a little cleaner, and then after that, they can be close to getting them each time. I just didn't think
I know
they.
what you're saying. I know what you're saying
Yeah, I'm not saying it
because it was too
effectively, but
early
I think.
on. It was too
Yeah,
early
I
on for
feel
it to
like
feel
that
like
one they could have
any.
just gotten away, and then by virtue of the fact that the other guys already have Stephen Merchant's character in their possession, they could have found them, and then they can start getting away a little bit more narrowly after that. It
I
just
think it
seemed
was
like
good because there was only one chase, right? Which is essentially just that one, right?
sure,
Except for the weird highway thing, which I think I'm going to get into that. Why I thought that was all
okay,
stupid. Because I liked when they tried to ram the gate the first like, hold on! You see the engine revving up like to like 70, 80, and they try to crash to the gate and then they just get stuck on it. Like,
yeah,
that's where that came into play because like, okay, now they could actually get caught because they actually couldn't get out. And so I felt that realistically enough. But you're right, because you knew it was too early on that like, this
yeah.
is
It was
going to
like
work out.
35 minutes into the movie. They're obviously going to get away.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, I had it spoiled that Wolverine and Patrick Stewart die like
same,
way before I saw the movie.
same.
And so I was like, okay, well, when that happens, it's going to be in the last third of the movie. Like, you don't need, I don't know. Anyways, so there's those two. The villain in that chase scene and the effect of Patrick Stewart's seizures. I can't think of anything else that I was like really bothered by because, like I said, if I haven't said it, I'm saying it now. For the most part, I enjoyed this movie because it wasn't like the greatest movie ever, but it was like way better to me than most of the X-Men movies.
Hmm.
So I did really enjoy it, but like those are the few things that I was like, when I think about this, it doesn't really work for me.
Hmm. I had a lot of problems with the movie afterwards, and I also
Okay, tell me
realized,
about him.
well, at least during the movie, the whole corn scene, we should help them get their horses back, right? It's like, we really should keep going. It's like, help will be on its way. Help is already here. And it's like, okay. Then Patrick Stewart uses his powers of X-Man to control horses. And then it's like, I get it. Okay, can they go now? No, I want them to come over for dinner. And then Logan's like, no, we should really be going. Then Patrick Stewart's like, no, that would be lovely. And it's like, dude, you know they're hot on your tail, and like these guys are like ruthless child killers.
But that's the thing is that I don't think Patrick Stewart knows that. Because Logan's the one that sees them outside of the hotel. Patrick Stewart has a seizure while the guys are behind him about to shoot him. So Logan and Laura know these guys are hot on their trail on a constant basis. I'm not sure Patrick Stewart is completely aware because he's a little bit senile, like we mentioned.
Yeah, but then it was up to fucking Wolverine to be like, no, we really need to get going, right? Because...
But I think that speaks to what I said earlier about Wolverine's personality, which is like, Wolverine knows anytime he tries to help someone, everyone he tries to help gets hurt.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
He doesn't want to do that anymore. He's sick of that. I think they needed, like, a concrete human example of that happening to be a big point in this plot, which is why they spend so much time at that house with those people. Because Patrick Stewart's senility gives them a reason to do that, and it also gives a reason for Logan to repeat his constant line about, every time I help people, bad shit happens.
Yeah.
But he wants to give Patrick Stewart, like, the rest he thinks he needs, I think.
This is where the movie falls apart for me. Because it's like, oh, so those trucks weren't actually after us. They were just Monsanto people trying to fuck with your farm horses? And, okay, fair enough. Oh, they turned off the water. Let's go turn it back on? Like, we're here way too long. It's like, no, we really should get going. It's like, no, spend the night. It's like, dude, fucking, come on, Patrick Stewart. Then they have that whole analogy of, like, mutants are like corn. This corn's all genetically modified to make high fructose corn syrup. No one actually eats this, but it's, you know, blah, blah, blah. And now big corn is trying to take over little corn. Like, I get why you're trying to make this analogy, but we're really spending way too much time here. I got it before the corn metaphor. I got it before the dinner scene with the gas station attendant, right? It was an interesting way, spoiler, to put down Patrick Stewart, you know, in this scene. Like, cause it's kind of like out of his death was born out of his kind of like, as you might say, ignorance or senility, or just kind of like, I want to have like a human moment kind of thing. But it was so long. He beats up Mr. Monsanto, goes back to the farm. Then all of a sudden they have Logan, the clone Logan, you know? It's like
X-23.
Yeah, what the fuck happened with that? He sees in computer vision, but he's a mutant. I don't understand what Clogan was necessarily, and why didn't they just make more Clogans? Why send one Clogan to do what could easily be like a 5 Clogan job? Anyway, I thought that was really fucking weird, because they already described like how they can't make these kids, right, like obey them, but they can like genetically make them from the ground up, which is kind of what they were doing with the kids anyway. I don't understand what that was. And how he had robot vision. Was he like a robot? Was he like a Terminator? Or am I seeing it wrong? Was there robot vision, or am I crazy? Or was it like a camera attached to his vest or something?
In the interest of full disclosure, I saw this movie about 2.5 weeks ago, so the weekend it came out.
Okay.
So I don't quite remember what the robot vision was, or whether they explained that super well.
Maybe I'm like thinking of maybe the camera view of Logan's guy or something. I don't know, but like,
yeah,
that all felt really weird to me. Then basic British scientist, you know, and his monologue, like all this.
The
all
British scientist and his monologue were another one of the like. It was just like that robot hand guy, where it's like, isn't this villain kind of generic?
Yeah, just check the box, man.
Yeah.
And then, as soon as Lori started talking, I was like, uh-oh. Because she was anyway, I'll talk about that later. It was established earlier that, like, she's mute, but then she's not. And then she just starts, like, blathering on about, like, where to go. And she was okay. For what she had to say, she was fine. The other kids I wasn't really a huge fan of. Then the logic of, like, we needed to kill all these mutants and, like, put them to sleep. It was like, I mean, y'all should just gone in and shot them all if you're willing to. Like, the whole alive or dead thing got really weird too when they just didn't want to shoot the other mutant children anymore. Like, they don't have regenerative powers, so why don't you just kill all of them? You know, you don't need them. The whole point was to exterminate them anyway. Why are you rounding them up in this field if not to just have a big moment where they escape?
Sure.
So that felt really, really obvious. The kids fighting felt kind of stupid, where they all just like get together and murder people. There was one cool scene at least where like Ice Girl freezes the dude's arm and he's like, "Ah," and breaks it. But then it's like, oh, don't worry, we live in a post-world where you can just get new robot arms because you already had a robot arm, so just get a longer robot arm. So it was like that kind of like defeated that a little bit. Yeah, and like the Clogan fight with Logan. It's like, dude, okay. You're gonna find the gun that has the perfect caliber for this adamantium bullet, right? To kill Clogan with. It's like, oh, this one revolver is gonna do the job. You know, it wasn't a rifle, it wasn't a pistol, it was the magic revolver for the magic bullet. Right?
I mean, I'm pretty sure they show like way early though that it's like a 9mm to 30 caliber, somewhere in that range bullet, right?
What are the odds that one revolver would fit that perfect caliber, though? You know what I mean? Because there's so many different ammo types. So that
yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those things where I'm not saying this to be rude to you. I'm just saying
suspend your
as
disbelief.
A general thing. Yeah, I think you're just like looking way too much into
No.
Like,
yeah, I get that. I'm being a huge dick about this, but like this is like when it started to snowball, and this is just like, and it's
sure.
like, well, if that's a thing, then why is this a thing? And oh my god, then here's that, and then we're gonna see this check. You know what I mean? And that was just more of the cherry on top kind of stuff.
Okay.
Because it was.
No, that
makes.
I get you.
Yeah, and then the magic green goo. I was like, give him 2 bottles of green goo, you greedy kids. Come on. Where you guys bogarting the green goo? Like, I don't know. The end just did such a good job, for me at least, of kind of like dismembering all the really good emotional impact and like kind of like character development and pacing it had at the beginning with just really dumb superhero check the box kind of storytelling. And that bothered me. Yeah.
Dude, okay, so if I can offer a counterpoint to that.
Please.
By the time Logan died, for me, I was like crying.
Really?
Yeah, dude. I sobbed at the end of this movie, man.
You know what also didn't help the fact? I was in a theater with like a lot of rambunctious youth, let's put it that way, who had no business being in this fucking theater. At the ending, I was sitting like in front of this group of fucking kids being like, all right, come on and die, hurry up. And I was like, you fucking kids, I'm getting so pissed off. You're ruining this like last moment for me.
I mean, by the time Patrick Stewart's character was killed by X-23, pretty much everything after that, with the exception, like you mentioned, of all the kids not just being insta-killed by the bad guys, pretty much everything after that, I was like, I cannot wait to see what happens next. And I cannot wait to see Logan triumphantly inject himself with the last of this stuff and then just take the fuck out that other, Wolverine after getting his ass kicked. I was so ready for all of that. And I was so ready for the connection that he had made with Laura to fall apart when he died, and I was so ready for him to just like fall over dead. And I guess, I mean, I unfortunately, for the fact that I did like sob like a little baby at the end of this movie, I can't refute any of the gripes you have, and I don't have rational reasons for them. But for me, like
they just
pretty much everything after Patrick Stewart's death, I was like severely emotionally impacted by.
I really like the scene, like, just after Patrick Stewart's death, of, like, the black family, like, trying to go up against Clogan. I was like, oh, you're fucked, kid. You hit him in the face with a bat, bing bong. And then they have the wife trying to shoot him, and then I couldn't tell if she got shot with the gun, too, or if she got her neck sliced or something. The wound wasn't very obvious. But I like the scene where the black guy runs down Logan with like his truck, and then like pins him against
Oh
the
yeah,
bulldozer, and then like he takes out and like shoots Logan a bunch of times, and he like looks at actual Logan, and Logan's just like, yeah, you can kill me
yeah,
now. I did this. This is all our fault. And then like
dude, yeah.
there's that moment you don't know if the black guy's gonna shoot, but then he does, but it was empty. And then like they both kind of like look at each other, and then the black guy's like, "All right, I'm dead now." That was a nice scene. That was a really good
That
way
was
to.
so great. Yeah,
I like that a lot because that was the nice payoff it needed. I think that, like I said, that could have been done a little bit faster. But yeah, me and Tower had like a huge rant yesterday about like just the. Oh wait, and what happened to this? What happened to that? I want like another thing that like this kind of harkens to is what happened to the rest of the X-Men? Like, how did they all die? I guess it's not important to this story of how they're all missing, or I guess in this
well, I mean,
case,
did you
dead.
watch like X2 and X3?
Yeah, I just don't remember. X3, what happened? I know Phoenix like died. She blew up.
I mean, yeah, didn't her like dying like result in a lot of other people being incapacitated?
I don't remember. I legit can't remember. I was like, then what happened to Magneto and his crew? Did Magneto die? I don't remember Magneto dying.
Yeah, I don't really remember. Well, I know Magneto was like in the Holocaust, and he was human. So the Holocaust was like 1939 and
Well, no,
1945.
but wait, where are you going? Where are you going with that?
Where I'm going with that is Magneto was let's say a 10-year-old kid during the Holocaust. So he was 10 years old in, let's say, the end of the Holocaust, 1944-ish. So he was 10 years old in 1944. X1 takes place in 2000.
Ah, good point. So you think he just died at old age?
He was pretty old. So, I mean, I don't think he would have survived to 2029.
That's fair. That's very fair.
I'm trying to find X-Men 3 on Wikipedia, and I'm typing in all the wrong shit, so... Oh, it's The Last Stand. Okay, so... Blah, 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 production, development, plot. Okay. Yeah, doesn't really say. So, I mean, I don't really remember X3 either. I just remember not enjoying it very much. Yeah, but I mean, I think they did a pretty okay job of explaining away that, like, all the stuff you've been seeing in all these other movies was pretty much just our attempt at controlling the mutant population, killing off bloodlines that could lead to more of them, stuff like that. Institutionalizing them as soon as they're born, if they're born.
Mm-hmm.
That lack of logic didn't really bother me too much. But I can see how it would bother you. I mean,
Yep.
or like anyone, like a viewer, let's just say, like a generic viewer.
But at that point, I'm nitpicking because I'll say I really like this movie, but just by the end, when it gets more into mutant this, mutant that, and it's not like the beginning was all about Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart, right?
Yeah.
By the end, it totally has to shift its focus to the mutant world or the mutantless world in which they live.
Yeah,
right?
the broader spectrum.
That's
of,
where the questions come in.
mutants.
Because before, who cares? I didn't care that Patrick Stewart
You
lives
didn't
in
care
a grain
because they
silo.
didn't mention it.
Yeah, it was like it wasn't a thing. It was just those two, and then one little girl. So as this building's like, okay, I accept all of this. But then by the end, it's like, okay, what about these fucking kids? And then like, we controlled it like polio. We had a vaccine and da 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 da. I was like, okay, so now we're addressing it, and then you start thinking about the rest of it. And this is like more after the fact when I'm like sitting down having dinner and conversation with Tyler, like, yeah, and then what about that? And then what about that? What the fuck was up with this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that disappointment is more born out of I came into this so fucking hyped, very much like John Wick 2, where like people were saying, "Oh my god, this is a 10 out of 10. Here's like the first Oscar-worthy superhero movie since Batman." And I'm like, "Oh, here we go. Take me on a journey," And then you see all of like the weird pieces not fit together at the end, and it's like, "Hey, wait a second." And that's what
to me,
drove
this
crazy.
is not even close in quality to Christopher Nolan's first two Batman movies.
Agreed. I think that comparison.
I think those two are such a far cry better than like almost every superhero movie in the last 20 years.
I 100%
It's almost laughable.
Yes.
But this, I do think, though, having said that, this is like one of the better superhero movies just by virtue of how shitty so many superhero movies are.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with that too. The bar is kind of low, but then again, that could also be because the bar was set so high by Christopher Nolan.
I think a big indicator of how low the bar is that one of our biggest selling superhero movies of the last couple of years is a movie whose entire existence is pretty much to shit on other superhero movies, and that's Deadpool.
Deadpool, yeah.
Like, Deadpool is constantly making fun of other superheroes to the point where it's like, this character knows he's even in a movie,
mm-hmm.
and he shits on movies that the actor playing his character has played in. Like, that is a big indicator to me of how shitty some of our superhero movies are, is like, when Deadpool, who I mean is historically fourth wall breaking character,
mm-hmm.
can like actively be shitting on so many superhero movies and it goes over really well. I think that's a sign that like there's a real, people are getting fatigued with some of the like laziness of some of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's even you know that dude who does Every Frame a Painting?
Mm-hmm.
There's even an Every Frame a Painting episode about how lazy some of the camera work is in like some of the best selling superhero movies of the last 10 years. And it's so true too. It's like literally just put the camera on a track and be moving one direction or the other. Doesn't matter which, so long as we're moving, while a character says this really fucking boring dialogue that's basically exposition.
Yeah.
It's like, that is such lazy bullshit. And the fact that this one was like, you know, actually thought out really well. And, you know, I mean, obviously I can't really, like I said, I can't refute most of your nitpicks. But the fact that it's relatively well thought out, very, very well acted, and as emotionally impactful as it was, it just seems like a nice change. And that's why I think I appreciate it.
No, and for any of you listening out there, if I sound like I hate this movie, I don't. I really did like it. It's just those things bothered me more so after the movie. Like I said, things I thought of after the movie, not necessarily while I was in it.
And I also want to say, I'm not trying to make you sound like you hate this. I'm just trying to rationalize why it seemed so good to me.
Sure. No, yeah. And for the very reason I like it too. It's very refreshing to see Wolverine straight up slice a guy's face off and tear off, like, disembowel a guy. Like, it's like, yes, you have claws built into your hands. Disembowel somebody, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's like John Wick almost, right? Go nuts with your violence. You have the power to just straight up make this into a gore fest. And I think that,
and also, if we can readdress an episode that has not come out yet, but will hopefully be coming soon. I did want to mention something about John Wick real quick, because I do have to go get ready for work in about 5 minutes here. I was thinking about our conversation about John Wick 2, and you know, one of the reasons I think John Wick 2 didn't work super well for me is that John Wick 1, by virtue of its brutality, its choreography, and its visual style, where they're not cutting away every time someone has to hit someone else and it's not super lazily directed, I think John Wick 1 was very innovative. And because it was so innovative, it maybe heightened the amount of quality we felt it was.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the fact that John Wick 2 didn't really innovate any further, it was just more of similar stuff, that might be why it didn't work. That might be one of the big reasons why it didn't work as well for us.
Disagree. It was just the invulnerability, because they did have that scene. Like, did you like the build up to Italy? In Italy, the catacombs.
Oh,
scenes?
yeah.
That was John Wick 1. Everything after that was just by the numbers, check the box action, right?
Cheat codes.
Yeah, cheat codes. And so this has the same problem of it just becomes check the box superhero rather than check the box action. Because check the box action would have been John Wick just blow everyone away, which they are already doing, which is new to superheroes actually, right? But that's nice that it checks that box because this dude has a cheat code. But it was when you see the tropes aligned with for me at least, the gritty emotional tone they had established in the beginning with kind of like the new bloody pulpiness of the this new Logan that we're seeing, to kind of go back into like make believe, don't ask, just kind of like go roll with this for a while and roll with everything until the end, from like hour 20 to 2 hour 20, right? It's like, come on,
Sure.
I wish that wasn't the case. It's hard though. Like, I honestly don't think they needed to add the little kids. I think having just Laurie would have been perfect. Cap that off. Let her go off and be the new Logan. Don't add the other little kids shit, because, if you can't shoot just Laurie and Logan, perfect. That makes sense because they regenerate, right? But then you have like the other kids with dumb dialogue, and, they just need to be in there because we want to see children or have like the potential for a sequel. Fine. But they didn't need it. And that took away from what could have just capped this movie beautifully. We don't see any more mutants. It is just Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, and Laurie, and the albino who blew himself up. We are in this post-apocalyptic kind of world for mutants, where everything is getting just kind of shit all over and everything has gone wrong, right? That worked. That works for me. But the introduction of more mutants kind of was like, uh-oh.
So what do we, just real quick, I mean, I have to leave in like 2 minutes here, but
yeah.
what do we think could have improved this? My personal assessment would be maybe cut 1 or 2 of the action scenes out of the movie. Not all of them, but like, big chunks of them. Cut out the plot with the kids, because I think Laura is very much enough, like you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And then tighten up the things that are not action or Logan and Laura.
Yes.
Because I do think the Black family was great, but I think some of the scenes that they were in could have been tightened either script-wise or cutting-wise.
Yeah.
And still retained their emotional impact.
Like, when the black kid was like giving his like iPod to Laurie, I was like, okay, he's gonna die. He's gonna be a keepsake. You knew that right away, right?
Yeah. Yes.
When we have
one of the more obvious plants in the movie.
The horse thing was even trying to explain away. Like, that could have been fucking done away with. When they find like Laurie's little picture of like, oh, and here are the exact coordinates of where they're gonna go because they wrote it down with North Dakota on it, like in the GPS coordinates. Like, dude, really? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that was stupid. They could have done with a lot of the tropes. The action could have been reduced significantly, I think. For me, again, it was taking away the kids. And then just have this cap off with just Laurie's now on her own, now the new Hugh Jackman, because she is now just like she's a cold-hearted kid. She was a cold-hearted kid before, but now she's going off to kind of like carry the torch of Patrick Stewart's dying days and Hugh Jackman's kind of like, you gotta be tough, but don't be like them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that was beautiful. That would have been beautiful. That would have been perfect for me.
Yep.
I think that could have made this a far better movie for me. And that's, to be said again, I like this movie a lot. That could have made it outstanding if they just would have left that. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think we have some interesting thoughts here. So, in conclusion of one of our longest episodes ever, would you recommend Logan to the people?
I certainly would. I don't think it might be necessary to see in theaters, though.
Yeah, I agree. I think Logan is an amazing superhero movie, but not an amazing movie.
Fair, and I wish it was, because it was that close. It was walking the razor's edge.
It was very close, yeah.
Yeah, to being that.
Yep.
Anyway, this has been Anson and Paul's Big Movie Podcast. I'm Anson Chan.
I'm Paul Morgan.
And we'll talk to you guys next time.
Next time.